This is the Draft Season Podcast. It's your boy Young Raz. I'm here with Sean 5K. You already know the names, you know the faces. But we're living up to our name today, and it is actually draft season. We are digging into these prospects today. Sean 5K, talk to him.
You already know, and we back with the one and only Jalen Suggs, who needs no introduction on his own end, who just had, an accomplished freshman season. Gonzaga basically drubbed everybody that stood in their way up until this Baylor game, actually, to be honest. But what stood out for you about one young Jalen Suggs, Raz?
Jalen Suggs as a freshman, he just seemed to be in control for the most part of his game. He didn't take, he played on a stacked team, so we'll go with that, obviously, and they played a lot of inferior competition in division or conference, for college. But he was always in control of his game. I never felt he played out of his game. He was always composed. He never was afraid of the moment as a freshman. Real loves the moment. And I think just for someone so young and someone who has just so much room for growth, somebody, his body control for someone that young, and that's still kind of raw, because he's going to get way better as he gets older. His body control, as he works on his body, that's going to be something that's going to be a ridiculous asset he'll have going forward.
One of the first places to start with on Jalen Suggs is he has a combination of size and speed that's probably not matched by a lot of guards in the league. You're talking about, he's not the biggest guard. He's 6'4", with a plus wingspan. I think the wingspan is around +1 or +2, so it's around like 6'5", 6'6". But he plays bigger than his size. No lazy passes get by that dude on defense. His off-ball anticipation, ability to really play in the passing lanes is something that really impresses you and really stands out to you as somebody who, even if he isn't, a lockdown one-on-one defender, that's not really something that is really a safe projection for any guard. All these guys are going to get scored on at the next level, and whenever he's going up against much more skilled guards who and even quicker guys that he wasn't faced with on a night-to-night basis at Gonzaga, when he's going up against those guys, his off-ball defense, I think the honing of that skill at the next level is going to be important for him. Obviously, the main caveats which usually comes to play with most young players, or even on defense, off-ball defense is usually where most guys, they lose some. They lose some of the anticipation and, just the focus that's required on-ball defense. That's something that, the most veteran defenders, making sure you're locked in on a possession-to-possession basis. That's usually where the best off-ball defenders really, highlight themselves and stand out. What else really stands out to you about Jalen, though, Raz?
I think, as you was getting into his defense, just his ability to be able to guard both guard spots. I think that's just going to help him stay on the floor as a rookie, being able to guard the 1, the 2, and honestly, in this new NBA, if a team is going small, he will be able to slide to that off guard spot where he can guard the third guard as well. He's just very strong to me, and I think just defensively, that's going to be where a lot of his early minutes and a lot of his early, money to be made is going to be made on that defensive end if he really locks in and hones in on that.
important facet on Jalen is his shooting, and when we talk about where he's going to end up, the shot is going to be a big part about how good his offense is going to be at the NBA level. Watching him at different levels. He played a lot on the FIBA World Cup team where he shared a lot of ball responsibilities with who else was on that team? Tyrese Halliburton, Kate Cunningham was on that team. I
Yep.
believe they also had Kira and I'm forgetting somebody else who played on that under 19 Team USA World Cup team. When we get into his shot, he has low low shot release on his actual mechanics, and you've definitely seen if you watch a lot of his film on the lower levels, you do see the improvement that he's made as a shooter. Coming down to another level at Gonzaga, on the one of the first, his AAU circuit. He played on the Under Armour AAU circuit, and he shot 30% for three in 2019 on 30 3-point attempts. On total 3-point attempts. Even looking at some of his other shooting samples that you've got from him, on the aforementioned Team USA World Cup, he went 9 for 36, which was basically 29%. Over Gonzaga, this is where you saw a lot of the improvement in his actual 3-point shot. He went up to 34% on 104 attempts, which is not necessarily the highest, shot attempts and volume that you basically expect, but he has showed improvement. But this is definitely something that it's gonna be an attribute that we're gonna have to watch how it develops at the next level. Like I did mention, he has a low shot release, but he showed a lot of comfort getting to his pull up shot out of pick and roll. What kind of archetypes and guards do you see him really playing next to? We see he has a strong shot to go somewhere in the top 5 of this next draft. But what type of skill sets do you think he's going to need next to him to really, replicate some of the success that he had in Gonzaga?
Well, honestly, I think he's gonna need a big man who has the ability to roll, soft hands, and can finish at the rim. That's gonna open up a lot for him. Just because he's just a player right now that doesn't have the in between game. Analytics, Twitter, and analytics, basketball would love him. He takes all of his shots from deep or at the rim, but as we're seeing, the mid range is not dead. So, that's something that he's going to have to work with. But I think having, in a pick and roll game, having someone who can work with dribble handoffs as a big man and roll and really catch the rock from him, because he can pass and he's a willing passer. I think that's going to help. In terms of the wing, obviously, a shooter, 3-and-D. I mean, we always say 3-and-D is important in the NBA, but I think someone like Jalen Suggs would benefit off of having a true 3-and-D player with him, someone who can also help guard on the wing and catch and shoot. In terms of a lead point guard, though, because I do view Suggs as the off guard, he's going to need a point guard that can get, he has the ability to get his team into the offense, but he's going to need someone who really can get the team into the offense, make the right reads, and get Jalen Suggs the ball where he needs to get the ball as well. I think in an ideal situation, having a team with a strong point guard for him is just going to make his transition a lot easier.
When we talk about rotational outlook for Jalen Suggs, and you touched on this a bit, Raz, when you're talking about him more as a secondary guy. So when we talk about his actual his projection on the next level, one thing that we haven't really touched upon is, like you said, Raz, he definitely has the NBA Twitter shot profile. He shot 47% on mid-range shots, but he only took 36 shots in the mid-range. One thing that really did stand out to me about Suggs, particularly with the way that he was defended at the college level, teams went under on screens, as we see right here on Suggs. And my thing about him is in the next level, when most teams probably are going to be, fighting through screens and going over at the next level, how is that necessarily going to affect his scoring range if he doesn't have the counter of the mid range? And that probably would play a pretty big, it's going to play a big part of what his offensive upside is. Because like we did say, he's ready to go with all of his secondary playmaker skills. But if you're taking somebody in the top 5, philosophically, that's what we're gonna get to. Is that somebody that you want to take in the top 5? Somebody who doesn't have, I think if he doesn't sure out he either needs to improve as a playmaker, and even, some of the more advanced reads out of the pick and roll are things that you would like to see him add more to his repertoire, because mostly his reads, he's great at finding the roll man. He's great at finding the fade guy out of pick and roll. But yeah, look, another thing actually comes back to he's gonna need additional craft with his handle to set up those actual more advanced reads. So when we talk about Suggs, Raz, where do you kind of see the upside of where he's going to be taken? Is this just a pure, it's kind of hard to see Suggs in a scenario where he's not contributing towards winning basketball, which makes him worth the pick? Or will we look at this towards in a few years from now and say, the upside probably there's guys below him who might be able to pass him in the future when they make certain skill upgrades with their profiles?
That's just a tricky question, right? Because we can always play the potential game. There's players where in this draft, this draft pretty deep, in my opinion. I think obviously, if some of those players that are ranked below him, hone into a certain skill, then yeah, they could be better than him. But that's the whole potential that we're looking at what we got right now, right? And as right now, he's not a fully complete player, but he's ready to play in the NBA today. And I think, to your point where he doesn't have that, that mid-range game, that's going to affect some of his offensive outlook going into the NBA. But he does have room for growth on all of that. His shot, can be fixed. He's not shooting poorly from anywhere on the floor. I think he shoots, about 76 from the free throw line and about 33.7 from 3. Now, not great numbers, and obviously that line's going to be further back in the NBA, so we'll have to see how he adjusts to that. But I do think he does have room for improvement on all of that, and I think he will have the work ethic to grow with that. So I don't really see him not being worth the top 5 pick. Just what he can do right now on the defensive end and how he can run a little bit of the show and get downhill and make those passes. Yeah, he's not, a point guard as of yet, but with all of that being said, top 5 pick, I'm totally comfortable picking him.
I'm in lockstep with you on this one, and I think one of the more things that it's a big variable when you're talking about, do guys hit their upside? Are guys going to fail at the next level? And if you're not really keen, and we're not in these draft rooms, we're not scouting these guys, we're not seeing how much they actually want to be great. But from everything that I've ever read about Jalen Suggs, you can tell that he has a plus makeup. You can tell he's determined to be great. And this is not somebody who, he doesn't strike me as one of these competitors who, is going to be complacent with where he stands in the league. So he really does strike me as somebody who's going to maximize the level of potential he has. And we talk about, if you know anything about Jalen Suggs, like a lot of the background stuff, it's been bemoaned to death, and there's a lot of people talk about just how good of a two-sport athlete he was. But when you really talk about, his grit and his determination, he does bring that football, mentality to the hardwood. And, it plays itself out in a different way. As somebody we saw last year with Anthony Edwards, who also had, that football mentality. And you could tell the way, with the approach to the game. So in this case, I think, like you said, Raz, I think in a class like this, Jalen Suggs his upside, it may not be the highest in this class. Now, if we're talking about if he becomes a high level pull up 3-point shooter, then the sky's the limit at that point. But there's a certain things, and another I think another aspect to which I think it's actually a plus for Jalen Suggs in this scenario. But there's a lot of guys when we talk about guys who are going to go in the top 10 on the lottery of picks, that in order to hit their their potential, they need multiple things. They need multiple skills to develop at a high level to really hit that. But with Suggs, I don't think he needs. There's not the package is ready to go for Suggs. If the 3-point shot really solidifies itself, I think necessarily you don't want to overextend his offensive creation abilities until he's there yet. So that's going to be a big part of letting him grow into the actual level. But in an optimal scenario, in a winning basketball environment where he's not asked to do too much, where offensively he just has to find an open man, hit his catch and shoot guys, and once he does develop into a consistent pull-up guy, once we talk about the defensive upside that he has, to where I don't necessarily see how he ends up less than a neutral defender
Suggs going forward in the draft.
That's tough. I would like. I mean, it depends. I gotta see as rosters are currently constructed. I mean, that's what we're thinking, right? We can't think of like any of these moves that could potentially be made. But I mean, he's gonna go. I mean, Houston. Houston's not a bad fit if John Wall's going to be there. I would like him in Toronto. I don't know if he gets there to where Toronto is, right? But like, I would love that. Cleveland, I don't want anyone going to Cleveland if we're being candid. But I mean, him and Garland wouldn't be a bad fit if they come up off of Sexton, which there's rumors that might happen. So I would say I would go Houston, Toronto, and OKC but he's not going to fall that far, I don't think, to Oklahoma City.
Well, yeah, this has been the draft season podcast breakdown of Jalen Suggs. If you enjoyed this video, definitely make sure you subscribe to the page. What do you guys think? Where you guys' favorite destination for Jalen Suggs in the next level on the NBA? Drop a comment. Let us know where you guys want to see Jalen Suggs end up.